This is Curious Brain Thoughts.
Good day to you, Paul.
Good day to you, Louise.
How art thou doing?
I am. Sorry, I was trying to avoid coughing into the micro.
That's how Paul's doing, everyone. Bob Fleming is in the house.
I'm actually not too bad, apart from this cough, which is like a hangover from a virus of some description. So, yeah. How about you?
Yeah, similar. I had a horrible bug. I was properly down, you know, when you're properly ill. And then on the recovery from that, I caught a cold. So that's great.
Good. So you're doing it in decrements of flu followed by cold and then followed by well.
Yes, that's the plan.
And although we don't normally date our episodes, I have a feeling this one might be coming out on Boxing Day. So lovely. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, and whatever Christmas means to you, I hope that you are having a time that is okay. I'm saying that because we get these rhetoric, don't we? It's the most wonderful time of the year and everything's amazing. But actually, that's a reflection for lots of us that it's actually really a tricky time of year.
Yeah. Yes. And I guess my intent is to wish people well and...
Yes, exactly.
And that they may experience joy in their hearts at some point and growth and all that sort of lovely stuff and peace.
And I think, honestly, in that way, that's always our intention, actually, thinking about it. So we wish you more of the same.
Yeah.
All the time.
And we're extremely full because we've had a lovely Christmas dinner. Because we spent Christmas Day together.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
And we're now spending Boxing Day with the rest of our family. So It's absolute carnage at the moment. There's loads of kids charging around and...
Well, so for me it's different this year because... Sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze then, but I'm not.
Well done. Good save.
Thank you. My son is not here because he's with his dad. Now, for lots of people who co-parent, that's the case. You have you don't always see your child at Christmas or your children at Christmas. So, and it's really interesting because I was talking to a friend of mine years ago and she said, well, Christmas is just a day. And so you can choose any day to be Christmas. People who are in the forces do that. You know, they celebrate Christmas before the person is deployed, knowing that they won't, you know, do you know what I mean? So I actually look at it in that, it's lovely to look at it in that fluid way. And, you know, just go, yay, we can do whatever we want, whenever we want. Do you know what I mean? It's a lovely time of year to connect with people and to visit. I just want to acknowledge that the big days are fluid and can be placed whenever you want to place them.
Yeah. And so what we tend to do in our family is we try to all be together on Boxing Day on the 26th, which is what we're doing. So, and as Lou said, her son's not with her this year. And there's, you know, he'll be missed by his cousins. And Lou is going to do a grand tour of the family. So that's nice. He'll still get to see everybody and we'll get to see him. And it's also nice that so many of us can be together because now a lot of the kids are adults, and so you can't really call them kids anymore because they're off doing their own things.
That's right, they are. And that, so that's the dynamic shifts and changes again.
Yep.
Which is lovely.
It is. Well then, now, we're still a little under par, so I vote that we lean on the random theme generator.
Agreed, yeah. Okay. I'm not feeling 100%, I'm not going to lie to you.
Okay, amazing. So, let's fire her up.
Random theme generator. Random theme generator.
Are you ready, Louise?
Yes, Paul. I am ready.
Good. This time, the ticker tape I am holding is excuses. And do you know what? I was, as I first saw that, I thought, oh, okay, interesting. And then when I thought about it more, it made me reflect on the fact that there's, just all that conversation we were having about all the time of year and we can place things whenever we want. Interestingly, that's not done so much with New Year because of the January, the 1st. And just like for Christians, the 25th of December is Christmas Day, as is marked. And so, like the 1st of January, New Year resolutions, thinking forwards about, I'm going to do this and going to do that. And yes, then it got me thinking about excuses, because I sometimes have these things around, I'm going to get fitter, I'm going to do this, that and the other. And then I've got all these valid, in my mind, excuses, and sometimes they come through, sometimes they don't. So, interesting that excuses is coming up at this time of year.
Yes, for sure. And so I've just looked it up, and this is off of Oxford. And excuse is to seek to lessen the blame attaching to a fault or an offence, to try to justify. To give a reason or an explanation. Or an informal usage is a poor or inadequate example of. That's a pathetic excuse for a roast dinner, for example.
Which obviously wasn't said yesterday.
No one ever says that in our family. And
the excuse justification for an after 8 accidentally jumping into my mouth repeatedly. It's not my fault.
Now listen, this is the interesting thing. An excuse is to lessen the blame attached to, or to try and justify something.
Yeah.
But a reason. So there's a, and you could take the same rationale and view it as an excuse or view it as a reason. And I think the only difference is whether you're trying to be kind and compassionate to yourself or not, basically. Because if you're saying, well, I've got all these excuses, I personally think that's quite self-critical. You could say, I've got all these really interesting reasons why I haven't gone to the gym. And if I look at that with compassion and kindness, what that tells me is I'm not ready, or whatever it tells you.
And it's a very close relative to excuses, or a very close relative to judgment, which was one of our other episodes. Because if you feel the need to make an excuse for something, you judge it is inadequate, inferior.
Yes, exactly.
Use another word.
Yes. And sometimes we hear, I don't know, people in the public eye, like politicians or public figures trying to excuse their behaviour or excuse a situation. Felix and I, when we were, because the second week of my horrible virus, Felix was also very ill and he was off school for an entire week. And during that week, we discovered a program that I don't know if it exists anywhere else, but it's called Gogglebox. And it sounds really weird, but you watch other people watching telly and the things they say. And it is funny and you get all these diverse opinions. But they were watching a politician. I think it was relatively old because it was Rishi Sunak. He was talking about this high-speed rail program that's been in existence in the UK, and he was trying to give a justification for why they have scaled it all the way back so that it now only connects the middle of the country to London, not the north of the country to London, which was the original intent. Yeah. And so he's trying to give his excuses for that. And it came across as just really, really disingenuous, really inauthentic. So it was poorly done. Why? Because he should have admitted. He should have owned up to the fact that the project started off as one thing and has become something else. Yes. And he didn't do that. He tried to excuse it, and there wasn't really any excuse. So it can really backfire in those kinds of situations. You know, if you're not prepared to actually front up and be honest.
Yes. I was thinking about how I think of excuses as a container to put something in that you're not comfortable with or that you want to necessarily disclose. So, so thinking about that example, of a politician making an excuse, which is quite rare. It's not an everyday occurrence.
No, you don't. It is like, once in a blue moon you'll hear that.
Yeah,
isn't it?
I mean, if rocking...
They're normally so authentic and honest.
So if rocking horses could defecate, then...
Yes, if they could.
Yeah, it's about that rare. So I'm surprised, actually, you found anything online.
I know. I think that's why it made the cut on the Gogglebox thing, because it's so rare.
So rare. And so thinking about that... instead of being open and authentic and honest about, actually, we've had to scale things back because we underestimated the cost of things, because it's hugely disruptive. They're having to buy people's houses. I think someone I know is near to like one of the dig routes of HS2, it's called. Yeah. And so they're having to buy houses, relocate. I mean, it's huge. I mean,
it's huge. It is massive for the people
and
affected.
I also wonder as well whether it's an, in inverted commas, easier way of, in this example, not having to go into loads of details about, all the reasons behind. So maybe trying to summarize it into a set of more macro level justifications as opposed to the myriad of reasons as to why something isn't the way it is. And then I think about, the times when I use excuses, they are a convenient container because I could maybe put my shame in that box and put an excuse around it. I could put my avoidance or my fear or my anxiety or whatever it is, I can put that in the box, and then what I'm presenting is the excuse, not the thing that's inside.
Yes, I think that's right, because sometimes that's not okay to disclose that, or doesn't feel safe to disclose that. But I think excuses are really obvious. But it's not always appropriate to dig for the underlying reason, because that can be very raw and very sensitive. So if you look at it, an excuse as a kind of a veneer, a little lid on the container, which has got some maybe some very challenging things inside it.
Yes.
Then actually it can be very helpful.
And it's an opportunity to be compassionate. Think about, children who make up an excuse for not doing something that they feel scared about, worried about, whatever. And they will come up with all sorts of justifications as to why they don't want to do the thing. I don't want to do sports because I don't want to go to school because I don't want this, because etc. etc. And it's looking on those things compassionately.
Yes.
Helping, as parents, we would want to help our children to lean into those things.
Yes.
In as safe a way as possible, so that the excuse isn't perpetuated and validated. Because as you said, an excuse is also inauthentic. It might be as authentic as you can be in that moment. And
yes,
it can erode trust and undermine things and so on and so forth. So, that's why dealing with things so compassionately, if people were able to be honest about something, vulnerable about something, they probably would. And the reason, the fact they're having to make an excuse is because they're not ready to look at that part of themselves. They, not ready to do that thing. They don't want to disclose their shame or their fear, or
and frankly, they might be doing it in order to, for example, I might make an excuse because I don't want to attend a social event. Let's say, and I could say to the host of that event, I could be honest and say I don't want to come, because I don't feel really very well in myself. My mental health has been not very great, and I feel very anxious socially, so I don't want to come. I could do that, but that might feel very, very, to your point, vulnerable and raw and not okay or safe for me to say.
Yeah.
So I make an excuse and I say, I'm so sorry, I've got a very nasty virus, I can't come. Or whatever.
Yeah. Blimey, lose
sorry, my
lose
WhatsApp's
popular.
pingedy dinging.
You're right there.
I'm just turning it off. I'm sorry about that.
Ding dong, ding dong.
Someone's ding donging me, and that's not okay in a recording.
Guys.
That's my oversight. I'm not making an excuse for it. Notice that, right? I'm being fully accountable and owning the fact that I should have turned my WhatsApp off. Humble apologies all round.
Amazing. And I can tell that everybody is extending their gratitude. Yeah. The other thing that came into my mind as well is that using an excuse can also be a bit of a double-edged sword. So we've talked about one side being, I'm not ready yet to disclose something about me for whatever reason, therefore I present an excuse. The other side that got me thinking was also to do with being sensitive to others. So let's say you're invited to a social event, and you're not feeling it, and so you make an excuse to the host.
Yeah.
Now the host may really want you to be there, and by being sensitive to where they are, they might not be able to deal with that, and so making an excuse which is as genuine as you can be without, hurting the feelings of the other person, can be a real act of kindness as well. Because, you're not wanting to derail things, the excitement, the whatever, for the person. And so, yeah, I think that's where it can also be interesting. That's just suddenly triggered a thought around the concept of white lies as well. Maybe that's something for another day. You know, the idea being that the intent is positive.
Yes.
You know, you're not trying to do something misleading, malicious, or controlling, or whatever.
No, indeed, and I think that maybe if we look at the concept of, when we make excuses for ourselves.
Oh, excuse me.
If we are trying to, even if we're constantly letting ourselves off the hook for doing something, at the root of all of that is us trying to keep ourselves safe. Mm-hmm. Even if that means I've eaten a whole tub of Quality Street and not been to the gym.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to keep myself safe. So I think that an excuse is like letting off steam in a pressure cooker, letting a little bit of this energy out.
Yeah.
Because, I think people are very, very hard on themselves, speak very, very negatively to themselves. I won't generalise. I can be very hard on myself and speak very critically to myself.
Wow, Lou, I'd love to know what that's like, because I literally never do that.
Hashtag unfamiliar.
Hashtag you problem.
So for me personally, the growing inner dialogue of compassion and kindness to myself means that I don't berate. If I make an excuse, let's acknowledge that. Berate myself for it. Mm-hmm. And I find my journal very, very helpful for processing that and being honest with myself about it. And people have all sorts of different ways of doing that. But I just honestly don't believe, if we notice that we're making excuses repeatedly, well, that's a bit of feedback.
It is. And we might not even realise that that's what we're doing. So I'm thinking people who aren't very self-aware or, narcissistic behaviours, not to pathologise anybody, it does come back to the reason being is they can only disclose so much, which is the excuse, the outer layer. They can't disclose the thing that's inside. And so they are clues, they're pointers as to where people are at, without them having to disclose everything all the time.
Yes. And then it's a choice about whether we want to spend time with people who excuse themselves and don't take accountability for themselves, for example. Mm-hmm. We may be okay with that. We may not be okay with that. That's our choice.
That's right.
If we're experiencing lots of excuses from others.
That's right. And then we excuse that behaviour.
Or we
Do you
don't.
see what I mean? Yes.
Yes.
No, so I was just thinking about, the more we excuse another person's behaviour is something to be curious about.
Agreed.
When we notice them using lots of excuses, because evidently, curiosity moment, there's something to be curious about there.
Yeah.
Why is it that I am okay with excusing this behaviour over and over again, or these types of excuses over and over again? Why am I okay with that?
Yes, why am I okay with that?
Yeah.
It's a very good question. And then you're owning the bit of the interaction that's yours.
That's right.
Which is your response to the excuse. You're not owning the excuse. That's for the other person to own, and they may never choose to do that, and that's all about them and not about you. So it can be very difficult. I hear myself and other people talk about the behaviour of others through the lens of how they would have behaved if they had been in that situation, and they get frustrated and upset because the other person is not behaving how they would behave. And the minute that you notice that you're holding other people to a standard that's actually and a set of choices that are yours, that actually doesn't make any sense.
No.
So I need to stop doing that.
Yeah, that's right. The other thing I was thinking about in a very different tack, just the other day, going through excuse me, going through a crowded space and saying, excuse me. I can't remember where I was. Anyway, it was a crowded space. I was probably doing the Christmas shopping for the roast dinner and stuff. And excuse me, please, when you're trying to get through or get past or whatever. And the other thing as well would be like the peeling of a tangerine. Satsuma.
I've got a bowl of them on my desk. It's vitamin C, people. We need to onboard as much of that as possible.
Indeed, particularly when you're poorly.
Right.
And the other one being, for example, you're at the table or in a meeting and you might say, oh, would you excuse me, please?
Yeah.
You're not going to say, I need to go do a massive dump. Well, you might do. However,
You might.
to be more polite, interestingly, right? To be more polite, when you're trying to get through a crowd, you say, excuse me, please, not move.
No.
And
get out the
when
way.
when you have another need, for example, a bio break, and you're in a setting with people that you don't necessarily know particularly well, or that's more formal, you might say, do excuse me.
Yeah.
As
And when a child is asking to be released from the table, they might say, may I be excused?
Yes.
So you're being let off from your responsibility
Yes.
in that moment. You're not.
Yes.
You may be excused from sitting nicely at the table and go and, I don't know, wreak havoc in the other room, or you may be excused from being a professional part of this meeting and go and drop the kids off at the school or whatever it is. So.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so there's a you're asking for permission to be let off from your responsibility, whatever that is. It is interesting.
Which is, in that example, is a courtesy. And so if you think about
it's good manners.
Yes. Excuse me, I just need to take this call. Okay. I do wonder, though, underneath it, is that, sorry, do excuse me, I need to take this call, is the thing inside because I think this might be more important, or because this is more important. And, do excuse me from the table or whatever, because
you're boring.
Because you're boring, because I don't want to say I need to drop the kids off at the pool.
Because this food was disgusting and I need to go and throw up.
I need to go blow chunks, pray to the porcelain god. And the, so the other one, like getting through a group of busy people, excuse me please, is better than saying get out of my way, potentially. It's more polite. So it's, again, maybe it's this whole idea of presenting these layers and the fact that the excuse is a softer version, safer version of what you're really trying to say.
Yeah, so it's not something to be... So the dictionary definition of it being a justification and kind of a way of explaining your subpar
Yes.
kind of performance in some way.
Yeah.
That's actually not what we're saying.
No.
In its purest form, it is about, you've done something, or please do excuse me.
Yes.
And I think that's the manners bit, but for ourselves, it's something to notice and something to be curious about, not something to give ourselves a hard time over.
No,
Really
that's
not.
right. So when I will be more mindful of when I hear excuses, and I hear a lot of them at home with my family, with the children, I will pause and be more curious about what it is they're really trying to say.
Yeah.
And
I don't, certainly for me, I don't, I think you have to be really careful if you call somebody on an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with my son, when I hear them,
Yeah.
I do think about what is he trying to say. And sometimes in a more general way, we'll have a discussion about whatever. But I just notice that I've spotted
Yes.
the difference between the outer and the inner.
Yeah.
And I'm aware of both. And I mean, obviously he's a child, so it's different with children.
And the other thing I was thinking about in that context was more so around the smaller things. Like, will you help with the dishwasher?
Yeah.
I can't. I'm too tired. I can't. I'm busy.
I'll do it tomorrow.
I'll do it. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, so instead of losing my rag, be a little bit curious about that. And then obviously with the bigger things, that's easier, I find, for me. It's easier to be more compassionate, more curious when there are excuses related to, let's say, bigger internal, external. I
also think there can be some real humour in us, let's take the dishwasher. There's an opportunity for some levity when the excuses start coming. It that can ease things in a way that, getting cross solidifies the position, whereas a little bit of humour or whatever can make it okay. And, again, it's all about our chosen response.
Oh, God. All this
Paul just had a coughing fit.
All this being adult is so like, oh my gosh. All right, Louise, coughing fit is so, can feel tiring, There's a lot of things to think about. If you look at the collection of all the things that we've discussed on Curious Brain Farts, there's, I guess, really the more presence of ourselves, the more we can get to know ourselves and allow ourselves to be present, the better, is probably how I would summarise things, as opposed to thinking about, oh, well, I need to do this and I must do that and I should do these things, and because that takes us more down other paths.
Quite.
So, well, let's go and pull some crackers and eat the rest of the Christmas pudding.
The Stilton. It's got my name on it.
Oh, yes. Do you know, Mum loves a bit of cheddar with a Christmas cake, doesn't she?
It's a classic.
Classic.
It's classic flavour combo.
Classic flavour combo.
No excuses need to be made about that.
I'm not making any.
No. Well, neither am I.
Fine. Well, good. I'm glad we tidied that one up.
Right, let's go.
All right. Ciao for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Curious Brain Thoughts.